Anybody at Against the Stream for their first time tonight? Couple. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have a period of meditation. I'll offer some instructions and then a topic, Dharma talk and some discussion. But before we do that, one of the core elements of practicing Buddhism is developing friendship with other people who are on the path, are practicing, trying to develop mindfulness and kindness and compassion and forgiveness. Considered one of the three refuges, one of the three core components of what the Buddha taught is meeting and connecting with like-minded people to support and encourage and challenge. I had a teacher who, he said the Sangha, Buddhist Sanghas are like a rock tumbler. We all come in with our jagged edges. We're suffering. That's what draws us, some level of dissatisfaction that draws us. And then being in community, you bounce up against each other and you have conflict and you have resentments and you have relationships and then they end and then they change. But if you stick with it, the community itself, the practice of being in community starts to smooth out your rough edges by continuing to practice kindness and compassion and forgiveness and learning how to fight like a Buddhist, which probably usually means complete avoidance. But here we try to encourage, healthy developing skills of the reality that there'll be challenges in the community. So one of the ways that I try to help facilitate that is asking as we begin, introduce yourself to some of the people in the room around you that you don't know yet. Welcome the new people. Just take a moment to introduce yourself to some folks. You can do whatever practices you know about. And if you're new and you don't know, I'm not going to give a lot of instructions tonight, but I've been inspired lately, and this weekend I spent some time with Dharma teacher Jason Siff came in and did some presentation to a teacher training group that I'm leading. He has a very interesting perspective he wrote a book called Unlearning Meditation, and about some of the traditional techniques and how sometimes they create a striving in us or kind of get in the way of some of the insights naturally arising. And it's a simple instruction. He says, take the posture. When you're ready, allow your eyes to close. And not yet, but I'm just explaining it to you. Put your hands on your lap and feel the contact, feel the sensations that your hands are there. And then just bring awareness to what's happening. And if you start to fall asleep, don't fight it. Let yourself nod out. But bring awareness to what's it feel like to falling asleep. Sometimes there's a lot of striving of if I'm falling asleep, open my eyes, stand up, fight the sleepiness. And he says, just allow it. Just be receptive to okay, there's drowsiness. What's that like in my mind? What's that like in my body? And rather than a prohibition on thinking, just notice what's happening in your mind. And if your mind is active and you're thinking about some stuff, just kind of let it go. Don't try to stop the thoughts at all. And if you think for a little bit, then really notice what happens to those thoughts when I'm sort of done with that plan or that memory or that, fantasy, that hope that I've been in for the last 4 minutes or whatever it is. Just be really open. He calls it receptive awareness. Rather than training on coming back to the breath over and over, or naming the feeling tones, or the labeling the mind states. Less effort, more awareness, and more permission to just be with what the mind is doing, what your mind is doing, and what you're feeling. And then every once in a while, just come back to feeling your hands. That's the sort of first foundation. Come back to feeling contact. How are your hands resting? Pay attention to those sensations that the contact of the hands resting, sensation it creates. And then again, just allow yourself to, if your mind is thinking, then there's thinking rather than making it a problem. Let those thoughts play themselves out. It's a dangerous permission on some level because you might just sit here and think about shit the whole time. But quite interesting. And I invite you to explore this open, receptive, less technique, more just openness to what's happening as you sit. And of course, if you know the traditional mindfulness technique and want to apply that, do it. Come back to your breath as much as you want. Come back to noting, feeling tones and mind states. Use the techniques that you want to use, but just as an option, consider that. The one other thing that he encouraged, that I try to always encourage, is establishing an attitude of kindness, an attitude of friendliness. So whatever's happening, no matter what your mind is doing, try to remain in a attitude of friendliness towards that planning mind, or remembering, or hoping, or fearing, or judging. A friendliness towards the mindfulness. The way that I like to define it is non-judgmental. Awareness of what's happening without judging it as good or bad, but having a knowing of whether you're enjoying it, or whether it's pleasant, or you're not enjoying it, it's unpleasant. So establish now, kind of take the posture, establish an attitude of kindness. Allow your eyes to be closed and your body to be relaxed. And allow your awareness to be receptive of what's happening here. Physically, emotionally, mentally. Not trying to make anything happen, just receiving in awareness what's happening. Feeling the hands resting in the lap. Body breathing, sounds coming and going.